That's not a bad
And
thing.
Alan.
Yeah.
But we're here.
We're here too.
All right, at this time, I'll call to order the regularly scheduled committee meeting for the Village of Midlothian, Wednesday, January 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Roll call, please, Clerk Foster.
Trustee Burbett.
Here.
Trustee Caveney.
Here.
Trustee Crowley.
Here.
Trustee Hilly.
Here,
Trustee Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Killeley.
Here.
Mayor LaRue.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor to public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? Okay. Then I will close the floor to public comment and move on to trustee business. Trustee Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I have one item. It's not on the agenda, but we had our finance committee meeting yesterday, and it was actually a very good meeting. And one of the things we've been talking about for the last couple of months are the commuter lots, metro lots, related to what we charged for someone to park their car there on a daily basis. Over the last couple of months, we've been pulling some data and information related to our expenses and our income. And I would like to make a recommendation for both the commuter lot, which is owned by the village, and currently we charge $35 a month for someone to park there. I would like to propose that we charge $40 a month, which would up the daily fee, if they pay the daily fee, from $1.75 to $2. The reason for that is the data shows that, and I asked Maggie, or Jackie Harris provided me all this information, so I thank her for all this information. So for the lot that's across the street from my coaches and the bars, as of April 2022, and I recognize that part of the issue is because of COVID, but for example, we took in $21,834 in parking lot revenue. However, our expenses were $43,613, and this is what began the process. Perhaps we should think about what we charge. Could we be charging more? Could we be closing the gap? Because obviously we cannot charge nearly what we would have to charge for the expenses. Part of the expenses, at least for that commuter lot, are the insurance, risk management, which is $42,000, and then lighting, electricity, which is $1,000. So this kind of precipitated what we were looking at. So there are 60 spots over there. Currently, people pay $35 a month. My understanding is probably 3/4 of the spots are paid for, whether they're used or not. They're paid for. So currently, if someone is paying $35 a month, and if we have 60 spots, we're taking in $25,200. If we were to increase it just by $5 a month, our income would go up to $28,800. It would be marginally more, however, it would help to close the gap, because one of the things we're talking about on the finance committee is how can we be innovative in terms of closing gaps, either reducing expenses or increasing revenue. So we've talked about that. As a part of this discussion that I brought yesterday, we also talked about potentially having meters, putting meters over there, so if someone was going to use the parking spots by the bars, they would use a meter, pay for it, go into the bars, come out. But in a discussion with the mayor preferred that we don't use it. And looking at, there's wide variation with the different companies. One company would charge us $30,000 to put the meters in. Another one would charge us only 35 cents per transaction, plus a fee for the credit card transaction and something else. So I thought, and the mayor said he would prefer that if we were going to do something, that we increase it to about $2 a day, which would make it $40. So if someone paid $40, they're paying $480 a year for the privilege of parking in their designated spot. I don't think that's necessarily a bad price. So I just want to get your thoughts on the commuter lot. What would you think? We potentially could start this either March or the beginning of the next fiscal year as a way to raise some revenue and to defer, as a result, decrease our expenses.
So I guess I would just say, we're only talking about the one lot that.
Correct.
That
There's a-
is on Waverly, because that's
Yes.
the only one that's owned by the village, correct?
Yes.
The rest are all owned by Metro?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
I mean, one of the things that, when you were talking, that I did hear was that it's 3/4 filled. I know at one point, that lot was completely full and there was a waiting list. Have we marketed that there are open spots there anywhere to try to get more people to,
That I don't know.
because it's a really good, for someone who's been a commuter for many
Right.
years, it's a really good location. It's great for, when it's really hot, and when it's cold, you just walk right across the little bridge and you're there. And it's also an easy out. So, there might be people who are in the commuter lot now who, in the metro lots that would like that, and I don't know if they know if spots are available.
Sure, and I don't know if Jackie has, if they'd automatically marketed when there's so many spots available. I can certainly ask her if we could do that, maybe put it on our website or put it on our constant contact saying,
Yeah.
we have X number of spots available.
We could also put a flyer up at the train station. Something that just says, we have limited amount of spots available in the commuter parking lot for a monthly. Because it's convenient too, you don't have to worry about paying every day.
Do we know what other towns adjacent to us are charging?
Yes, we do. So Jackie provided information. So these are not private lots owned by the village. These are their metro lots.
Right.
So currently, Blue Island charges $1.25. Joliet's $1.50. We're $1.25. Mokina was $1.25. Now they are $2 as of January 1st this year. New Lenox is $1.25. Oak Forest is $1.25. Orland and Tinley are both $1.50.
So we're right in the ballpark.
We're
We're
right
at the
in-
low end, yeah.
Oak
we're right
Forest,
in the-
Oak Forest is $1.25,
Correct.
and we want to charge $2.
Well, I haven't presented that proposal, so I'll do that. So let's park the commuter lot, which is the village-owned lot.
Mhm.
We would like to raise it to $40 a month per person, which would take it from $1.75, which is what it would be per day, to $2. So if you're, on average, if it's $20, or 20 days that you go downtown,
Mhm.
times $2, that would be $40. So that's one proposal. Now, the other proposal is for the metro lots. So for the metro lots, currently, again, as of April 2022, and again, because of COVID, our revenue was $36,930. That includes payment of the parking lot revenue, the parking tickets, and interest on our income. As far as the expenses, as of April 2022, the expenses were $87,487. Now this includes, I'll just read it just so
Kath,
that.
can you say those numbers one more time?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
So the income was $36,930, and those are for the metro lots.
And what is this date?
As of April 2022.
For
So
the-
it's over, so it's a year old.
For the year.
Last fiscal year.
So it was
For
last
the year,
year's.
last year.
That's the last fiscal year
Right.
we have. And that's why I qualified it with COVID, obviously,
So
Right.
that was like for the whole year?
yes. Year to date, yes.
And the expenses were what?
$87,487. And let me read you what that included. So janitorial was $25,600. Landscaping improvement was $18,763. Lighting, electricity was $19,887. Credit card and ACH fees was $4,589. Maintenance was $4,916. Repairs were $30. Improvements were $2,600, and collections were $1,100. Now, I recognize perhaps this year we would see less in terms of landscaping improvements, or perhaps it's less lighting, electricity. I'm assuming that's the comment bill, but it was 87. So just based on last year, we were at a loss of $50,557
Okay.
for the lots. So we, in talking with the mayor, he would like to see at some point that both lots are at $2. What I would like to propose is that, because that would be a significant increase from $1.25 to $2, I would like to propose that we raise over the next 3 years how much daily commuters would pay would go from $1.25. This year it would go to $1.50, next year it would go to $1.75, and then in 2025 it would go to $2. This way it's only a 17% increase versus the larger increase going from $1.25 to $2. We recognize that it's inflation, it's a lot of other things. However, again, I couldn't figure out how much more we would take in, but I think it's the concept. And again, I don't know, we have 5 lots, but I'm not sure how many parking spaces in each lot. So I would like to propose that for 2023, we would increase it from $1.25 to $1.50 per day for the commuter lot. And also, I forgot to mention that, and I believe I mentioned it this fall, that Jackie had told me that the meter box that we currently have there is becoming obsolete, and within the next 4 years, we have to purchase one that is compatible and in line with certain requirements, and that's going to be about $14,000.
I think that having the 2022 fiscal year is kind of it doesn't give us a good picture because that's actually May of 21 through April of 22, which is when COVID was really, it was still very involved. And so I think, a lot of people were definitely not going down. But I think the other thing is some of our expenses, I think, were a lot higher because, and I don't know if those numbers include the metro station, but I believe we added extra cleanings and things like that when it started slowly reopening. Now, I can't remember exactly what, but I'd really like to see what it is now.
End of this fiscal year.
Yeah, like I'd really like to, I'm not opposed to if in order to keep them running, we have to do certain things, but I think we did have a surplus balance in there. I would like to see what it is now, now that things are starting to open, and I know it's not full by any means, but I just think that was height of, 2020, I think, is when everything closed down, right?
And that's fine if you want to wait till after the close of the books in April of 2023 to see what last year's was, and there you can do a comparison of what the costs were and the revenues were for fiscal year 22 and then fiscal year 23. We can certainly do that and put this off for a
Wouldn't
couple months.
2018 be a better indicator?
Well, 2018 was huge. The problem is, I was looking back at some of the other ones. 2020 fiscal year was the revenue, I looked back on an old email we had, it was like $132,000.
That was the revenue?
According to the email Maggie sent months, like when we first started.
I would
talking
still
about
be,
different
I would
things.
still be in favor of raising the rate. We haven't raised the rate in,
That was gonna be one of my points, is
Yeah.
that, especially the monthly lot. the building
Right.
lot. Don, you've been on the board a long time too. I don't recall raising that
no.
ever.
And I think if we
Since I've
raised
been on
it
board.
just 25 cents this year, I think that's pretty reasonable. It's
Yeah,
not a-
I would
I
agree.
don't
Yeah,
want to
two
go.
separate things.
Yeah,
yeah,
The village
right.
owned lot and.
Right. And in both cases, I asked Jackie in a series of questions, I said, when's the last time we raised the commuter lot? Have no information. When's the last time we raised the metro lots? Have no information. I asked for the metro agreement, and they have one that is either, was addendum in 1992, but it was from 1986. And also, sort of interesting, fun fact, I'm a dork about this stuff. So Metro had a lease agreement with us for the lot across the street from the main terminal. We paid $10 from 2006 to 2026. So, you guys have always said, it's free, it doesn't cost us anything. I thought it was kind of cute that we paid $10 for 20 years. And then, they found the letter for me. So I just think, again, we're trying to look at every expense and revenue in terms of how can we either decrease our expenses, increase our revenue. I just wanted to bring it to the board's consideration to see what your thoughts were. We don't have to do it right away. We can wait till we get a better picture over the next fiscal year and make some determinations. But I would recommend, especially for the metro lots, that we at least increase it by 25 cents.
I would
Yeah,
be in
I'd be good.
favor of doing that right away.
I would too.
So my 2 cents, and then I sent the emails, some historical, factual information. I lived in that area for 30 years, and I used Waverly a lot. And after hours, that lot rarely has more than 5 or 6 cars. There's plenty of parking at coaches and at halftime. And I'm also worried that that would force the bar goers to just park down the street. So I don't think there'd be enough revenue to cover the cost of actually putting meters on that lot. So that was kind of my thought there. I'm actually in favor of advertising for the monthly lot spots, but as I drive by the train station every day, the main lot at the train station is still only 3/4 full. So there'd be no reason for someone to pay monthly when they can just park right by the train station for $1.25 or even $1.50. So I don't know. That's kind of my,
So why would they pay $1.50 or $2 to park in that lot?
the people that have those spots in the monthly lot have had them for a long time.
They're licensed, they get them for the month, they don't
get
pay
them for the
daily.
month, and they're guaranteed a spot
It's
every
$1.25 though
Same
now.
spot.
No, it's $1.75.
$1.75?
Right,
But they're guaranteed that spot every day if they
Right.
choose to use it. If there's a car there, they call the police, it gets towed, they get their spot. Whereas you're taking a chance by going to, at this point, all the lots are empty, not empty, but the main one here, maybe 15 cars. So I don't see a reason why we shouldn't try to advertise for the monthly lot, but at this point, I just don't see anyone moving from the main train station when they can just walk right up the steps to the train and instead of walking around and paying more, so.
So, sir, that's because you haven't been a commuter for a long time, and you don't realize the value of those 3 minutes you gain by being able to get on the other side of the tracks before the train comes through. I can tell you it is a huge deal. Huge.
Right, so they wouldn't want to go back across the tracks to get to that
Is there
lot.
no longer a waiting list for the monthly?
We exhausted the list, everyone gave it up, and they said no one really wanted it. I just, big picture, I just don't see it going away. I don't see work from home going away. I think that's the new model, and there's quite a few here that,
it's not going away, but every day, well, at least once a week in the news, you hear about more and more companies that are starting to call people back. So I agree with you, work from home is not going away, but we're gonna see a little uptick in people going back downtown.
I work in quite a few buildings downtown, and if they're 60% full, they're lucky. They're less than 60% full. The work I do is mostly creating white boxes, spec suites and stuff. There's no one really moving in. So I just don't see it going away. I'm not a,
No, I go down 3 days a
Prognosticator.
week, so I go down 60%
right.
all of the time.
Which is why the people hold on to those monthly spots, because some of them do that. They still want that spot.
Right.
And they'll pay that
Right, and
$35 or $40.
Yeah, $35 to know you got a parking spot,
Right.
not forever, but,
Yeah.
right, so, again, in the finance committee, we're trying to look at all our revenue and all our
Absolutely.
expense items to be creative and innovative and, do what's right for both the village and also for the residents, so.
I mean, and long-term, I also put that in the email, if this deficit continues year to year to year, I mean, we're really gonna have to consider getting rid of some of the lots, putting them back on the market for residential or business commercial use. I mean,
Well, if we didn't have parking, we would save $70,000 a year. That's the short version of what we've
Well,
talked about.
Metro's gonna require us to have a certain amount of parking, you know?
No, I'm saying if we didn't have a train station, we didn't have parking, we'd save $70,000 a year.
So we should tell Metro to
No,
stop.
that's not my point. Don't read into it any more than what I said.
I do think that, like, once we get updated numbers, it's gonna be a little different too. I mean, maybe not, it's not certainly where it was,
It's
but-
definitely better than 21.
Yeah.
Based on the numbers, though, even if we were parking at 100%, we'd still be at a loss.
But don't forget, that's only one.
If
one.
all the lots parked at 100%, we'd still be at a loss.
No,
No,
no, we
no.
were at a 100,
Well, then the numbers we went over are
So
wrong.
she's just talking about for the one period,
one fiscal year.
one fiscal year
She went
during
back to-
COVID.
you said back to
Well,
what?
Maggie has different fees for fiscal year, revenue for fiscal year 2020 was 132,000. One
But
of
what
those-
was the cost? The revenue may be up, but the cost must have been up as well.
But also keep in mind, we did some landscaping at the main station.
Right.
like you said, we've upped the amount of cleaning.
We
schedule.
repaved, we restriped, we've purchased every 4 years, we're able to take a car out of Metro funds. There's, different things that we take out that there's always been a surplus that, we try to use it to make the lots better. So it's not to create my understanding of it is it's not to create an income, it's not to be income driven, it's to be self-sustaining. So, as long as we could keep close to self-sustaining, I think that's what the
As we
goal
stand
is.
now, we're pretty good with raising the monthly lot to $40 a month.
I
Down
don't see
here.
how we couldn't.
Yeah.
And then we'll wait for the
Right, so if you wanna wait till,
fiscal year 2020.
Well, wait, I thought we were gonna raise the Metro lot to $1.50, raise it a quarter.
I mean, that's what I'm proposing, but if you'd like
Yeah.
to wait until we get the financials
I would,
at the end of
I would
April.
keep it $1.25.
I'm sorry, Don?
Well,
I keep it $1.25. Oak Forest is $1.25. What makes you think those people?
Well, don't forget,
Oak
we're
Forest is
talking
different
about
zone,
different
too.
zones.
It also costs
Oak-
more ticket, yeah,
Oak
to
Forest
go there.
ticket is more expensive.
Is Oak Forest ticket more expensive?
Yes,
It
yes,
is
it's
Midlothian.
it's
Kind
of
zone
last
D.
stop on the
It's
D
zone,
zone.
Yeah.
yeah, Midlothian is Zone D,
Yeah.
Oak Forest is Zone E.
Although right now Metro's running a $70 flat super ticket where you can ride any Metro, any zone, any line for $70 a month.
And I resent your comment that I'm not a commuter, I commute every day.
A train commuter, sir,
Oh,
a train
train.
commuter.
I
A
take the
train
train a couple times.
commuter.
So if I heard, so potentially would this go on, can I ask for that, for the commuter lot, monthly payment?
The Metro lot.
I kind of feel the opposite,
I'm
actually, to
asking
be
you this
honest with you.
question.
Yes.
Really?
Are we talking about the Metro lot or?
The commuter lot.
The monthly lot, let's call it the monthly lot.
Monthly lot.
So I almost feel the opposite, like, I don't know that I would raise the monthly lot for the people who are paying every month, whether they use it or not.
Because that's already at
Because
about
It's
$1.75 a
already,
day.
it's already at what we
I
would
agree.
charge.
It's
Yeah.
I
it's
think-
the Metro lots.
Yeah, the Metro
Yeah.
lots are the ones I'd be more comfortable with, adding the 25 cents to basically balance it. I'd be more that's just my opinion.
Trustee Kelly?
I think people would pay extra to get the monthly lot.
Because
They already are.
Yeah, and I think that if we raise it 25 cents, I think they'd still be there. I mean, it's, what is it, $7.50 a month extra?
It's,
Well, would you say?
So are you saying?
$5?
No, it's 25
$5 a
cents,
month.
$5 a month. For $5 a month, they're going to
So,
what?
so you're saying raise the Metro rate 25
75
cents,
cents
plus
a day.
raise the commuter lot to,
He's saying the
To
meter's the
$2.
same.
Commuter lot right now is $1.75?
right,
Yes.
And we're gonna raise it to $2.
yes.
and
That would be
Metro from
75
$1.25
cents more.
to $1.50.
Pardon
He
me?
wants to
That would be
do the
75
meter
cents more
lots
per
is
day.
125.
No.
No,
That was
Monthly,
before he
no,
realized there was
no.
a zone difference.
no, it's $1.75. Wait,
Right
wait,
now-
I think he's saying $1.50 and $2.
Our commuter lot that we own is $1.75 a day. Kathy's proposal is to raise it to $2 a day, which is a $5 a month increase.
And
It goes from $35 a month to $40 a month for the commuter lot.
I'm talking about the daily,
Right, the daily Metro
difference
lots.
are $1.25, and we're charging $1.75 a
Yeah.
day for
For the
the,
monthly.
for the monthly.
Right, it's 50
If we
cents a
raise
day
it
difference.
to $2, that'll be 75 cents a day difference.
But if we raise the other lot to $1.50, it'll be
The
50
difference
cents.
stays the
50
same.
cents a day difference.
I do both.
I agree.
See, aren't you glad you guys came?
Okay, so how do I get this voted on or approved? That's the part I don't know.
All right, so but your recommendation is the monthly lot going from 175 to $2.
Yes.
Did put that on the agenda. If there's, I'm hearing a little dissension,
Okay.
maybe put it under your business.
Okay.
And then we can vote on it. So taking it off to consent
All right,
agenda.
and then also, I put under my business, we'd like to raise the
The meter.
the Metro lot fee from $1.25 to
$1.50.
$1.50. And when would this take effect? This is the part do we do it at the beginning of the next fiscal year, so
No,
that we
you
can be
need to-
first? Or do
February.
we start at March? Probably by
February
the
or
time we get
March?
this done.
March.
I mean, let's hope the numbers come in from fiscal year, this last fiscal year, and
That's probably the time we get this done.
they're not gonna be good, because like I said, I drive by them every day and they're empty. so.
A lot
Can we
of
do it
stuff is
effective
time to
March
get
1st?
done,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as quick as we can do it, March 1st.
Do we have to consult with Metro?
My understanding from Jackie is that the maximum that they will allow you to charge is $1.75. However, if you want to charge more, you have to go to Metro, get it approved,
Okay.
which is what Mokina
Okay.
did for $2.
Okay.
We should probably coordinate with Metro anyway, so that they know what we're doing.
If it gets approved, we'll call them.
Yeah, to give them a heads
Yeah.
up, yeah.
And then once it's approved, we could put signs by all the pay boxes, we could post signs in the lot, put signs on the doors in the train station.
And they have to be reprogrammed too.
Reprogram, so that people pay by phone, it automatically says 150.
Right.
So maybe not much first, I don't know.
I'll talk to Jackie to see if she can reach out to the company to find out how quickly it could be done once it's passed. And that's all I have tonight.
That's all?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Trustee Burback.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything this evening.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Hilly.
Nothing this evening, sir.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Caveney.
Oh, Mayor, lots to talk about. First of all, I want to remind everybody that we're hosting our inaugural Economic Development Committee meeting next Tuesday, January 24th, here in this room at 6:30 PM. All are welcome. As part of launching our Economic Development Committee, I would like to have the village join the Illinois Economic Development Association. The ICDA cost every year is $250. There's a lot of networking opportunities and also a lot of other information that'll be very helpful to the village and Economic Development Committee as we are looking to come up with ideas to make Midlothian more business ready and to also, try to advertise some of our vacant spots.
I think it's a great idea.
So, can we put that on the consent agenda for next week to join? Maria, it's called the Illinois Economic Development Association, and it's $250. Okay,
Before you move on, I continue to get these emails, and I'm trying to find it now. Maybe I'll just send it to you when I find it. I believe it's a realtor type business, and they're saying that they can promote economic development in Midlothian. Let me just forward it to you.
Okay.
You can take a look. It could just be sale,
Yeah.
cold call sales.
yeah, okay. I've never seen any emails come through like that. Last week, we discussed the empty white building up on 147th. The address is 3825, 3831, 147th. It's the former Emporium Liquor Building. The village submitted an abandonment case to South Suburban Land Bank. The court hearing was to be held last Friday, the 13th, and prior to the hearing, the building owner secured counsel. Their counsel reached out to South Suburban Land Bank's counsel and said that they were going to make an appearance. And so we're still waiting to hear from our law firm as to what the outcome was of that. But basically what happens is once at the hearing or before the hearing, if the owner comes forward and says, hey, I'm here, I've not abandoned my building, then the village cannot continue to pursue abandonment. Sorry, we cannot pursue abandonment. And so now what we are asking, the village through the land bank will be asking the court to please require the owner to step forward and provide the village with what their plan is going to be for that building. And at this point, as we mentioned last week, we don't know what the interior condition is of the building. We know that it's in pretty poor condition on the outside. We don't know if there's any structural issues, and because the fact that it lies right in a floodway, not just a floodplain, if there are a lot of structural issues, there will be some limitations as to how much money can be spent to rehab the building. So the only option they might have is to knock it down and use it as parking. So hopefully we'll get an update from our attorney and I can brief you more next week. The last thing on my agenda is to vote for this ordinance, the revised ordinance. So does anybody have any questions or comments as to this final draft?
The only thing that I had was what we talked about earlier, is I just wanted to make sure that the language was clear that simply having a stake state license for a catering does not allow someone to serve if the venue owner does not have a license.
Okay.
So that was my only question.
Okay, I'm going to read the definition of venue owner that's on page 1. Venue owner means the owner of a business which is operating an event business in the event venue space and who may either be the property owner or lessee of the event venue space having a leasehold interest in the event venue. All venue owners are required to A, apply for a Midlothian business license regardless if they are also the property owner, and B, apply for a liquor license if they intend to allow alcoholic liquor to be served. So does that satisfy your question?
I just want to make sure that the attorney agrees. I did read it, I read both. I just, like I said, I want to make sure that the language that's in the definitions isn't conflicting with what's in the, I just want to make sure it's clear that someone realizes that the event venue still has to have a liquor license regardless if they have a caterer from another area come in that is able to sell alcohol.
Then in section B1, which I believe is on page 3, B1 reads, and this is under section B, heading as business license requirement, special use requirement, liquor license requirement. 1, it shall be unlawful for any venue owner to operate any event venue without first obtaining a Midlothian business license from the building department and a special use permit. Any venue owner who intends to allow alcoholic liquor to be served, regardless if served for free or for a fee, shall obtain a liquor license. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
all venue owners have to have a liquor license, whether the liquor is going to be served by them or a state licensed caterer.
And there's additional language under violation, penalty, and limitation, paragraph number 3. If alcoholic liquor is sold, stored, handled, prepared, transported, or served by, at an event by anyone other than the village owner, the venue owner's licensed caterer hired for the event, and again, these would be, some of these people might be able to get a license if we had them available. It says that the venue owner, event sponsor, licensed caterer, and non-VASID trained server shall be jointly and severally liable for any violation of this code or village ordinances or the Illinois Liquor Control Act that occurs at such event. So there's even follow-up language, 3 references to say if you use alcohol, the village ordinance and the state law applies.
I did read all of those. I read it a number of times. I just want to be clear that everyone's on the same page, that little language does not allow somebody to come in there that has the out-of-area license for the state without them still. I just don't want it to be misconstrued by anybody.
Yeah.
That was my clarification.
Okay, should we add language to that then? To clarify it, or do you think we're okay?
I think we're okay because for one reason, and that is that the new liquor code provides the main restriction on alcohol being served in the village, and it covers just about any context of it.
Okay.
You may still have a place that is having a Christmas party and is providing beer or wine or whatever at a Christmas party. We don't want to draft something that implies that means you have to get a liquor license if you're having an office party. If you're having a campaign party on election night, if someone brings a 12-pack for the candidates and center, we don't want to imply that necessarily, again, it's all going to be the facts of what is actually done, is in violation of the code.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2112, amending the village code of the Village of Midlothian to add section 5-4-43 to Title 5, Chapter 4, and to amend the village zoning code, Title 11, to provide for the regulation of private event venues.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Kami.
Aye.
Trustee Crowley.
Aye.
Trustee Burbette.
Aye.
Trustee Hilly.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Killily.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, one and all. Okay, in conjunction with this ordinance that we just adopted, attached is the fee schedule. On the fee schedule, I added at the bottom of page 1, event venue permit fee per event, $50. And then also, I had made another slight revision on this document. Oh, on under residential rentals, under section 3, I added a late fee of $100. And this would be a late fee that would be charged to a registered rental property owner, not the tenant. So if they don't pay their fee on time when it's due, $100 fee. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so I did put this on for a vote, that's okay? Okay. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the updated fee schedule.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Cabney.
Aye.
Trustee Crawley.
Aye.
Trustee Burbett.
Aye.
Trustee Hilly.
Aye.
Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Trustee Killily.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Oh, do we have to do a resolution? Shoot, don't we have to do this by resolution? The fee schedule?
Just amend our current resolution.
Yeah, okay.
Hmm?
Yes, you're correct.
I'm correct, we do have to do a resolution?
Yes, we can
Okay.
authorize it, you just authorized it, but I think for it to be valid, it has to be.
It does have to be, okay, so can somebody draft up a resolution and we put it on the a consent agenda for next week?
Amended, the resolution would be amending the fee schedule.
Right,
Yes, someone can do that.
okay, thank you. But thank you of your approval for those two items. So we'll be voting on it again next week with the resolution.
Thank you for all the time that you put into this. I know it's been quite a bit of work, but thank you.
You're welcome.
I was looking that way.
Sorry.
All right, but I did want to clear something up. There seemed to be a little bit of confusion. This, what you've been talking about, is for a event venue.
Yes,
This is not for our established liquor license holders
correct,
that hold events throughout the summer. That's part of our liquor license where they can get a special event certificate. No, you had another name for it.
Permit.
yes.
So that's.
Correct. An event venue seems to be a new niche business
Right.
model that has popped up lately. And in the last 18 months, we've had situations where we've had commercial property owners in town who have a vacant space would rent that space out to somebody for one night who wants to host a party. And the problem with that is that these parties, alcohol has been served, and there was no limitation on the number of attendees. These parties turned out to be way over capacity of the space that could hold them. They did not have proper restroom facilities. The attendees were spilling out of the space into the parking lot, into the front areas near the street, drinking open alcohol.
And sometimes they were armed.
Yeah, and it basically, these events turned into a safety issue and a nuisance in the community. So we felt it was important that we draft an event venue ordinance to regulate these, because there's no way that the Village of Midlothian, this is not a business that can be restricted. If the village tried to clamp down and say, well, we're not going to allow event venues, that's, sure violation of, people would claim it's violation of some federal law somewhere. So rather than go through that fight, we felt that it was in our best interest for the village, for the community, for our residents, for our overall business community, to put an ordinance in place that was going to regulate these event venues. And there is specific language in this that says event venues are not to be operated as a bar or a restaurant. That's not the intended purpose.
Pop-up bars.
Right, that is not the intended purpose. It's not to be operated as a bar or restaurant. I mean, a classic example of an event venue here in town would be our Ray Day Lodge. Back in the day, when I've had family parties at Ray Day Lodge, I could bring in my own food, I could bring in my own alcohol. And then as time went by, those rules changed, and I don't believe that people were allowed to bring their own alcohol in anymore. I believe that when the Park District, as the Park District has ran it over the last couple of years, the Park District provided alcohol and bartenders. So, and that's the type of event venue. If we're gonna have event venues in Midlothian, those are the type of event venues we wanna have. We want to make sure that they are well-managed and that they are being managed by people who are present and not,
And trained.
and trained, exactly.
Just all, okay.
And we want to make sure if alcohol is going to be served, it's going to be served properly and by BASI-trained bartenders, not just open coolers everywhere. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else?
At this point, no, thank you.
It's relatively painless. Trustee Kilby.
Piggybacking, Mayor, on trustee's comment about the land bank and on the 3824 building. I think I'd like to comment that in our ordinances, and the pro-champs ordinance, it vaguely mentions about inspections of vacant residential and commercial properties, but doesn't have any parameters on what the inspection is or anything about it on our village code.
And it doesn't say that doesn't say the village can inspect it, it just said it
Right, it
needs to
says
be
something about
inspected.
that, right.
But, yeah,
We need something in our code to make that happen. The best example is that building, which I believe is from the 1920s. It was vacant for 8 to 10 years. We didn't know at a couple points who the owners were, and it changed hands, I believe, a couple times. And there is this question about what the structure of the building is like. Is that the worst case scenario I can think of? Is that wall secure, that it won't fall on somebody? We don't have any ordinance that we can go in and inspect any of these commercial vacant properties, either, and I would put it for either rental or for sale. If they're vacant, we are collecting registration fees for rental properties, commercial rental properties.
for
right?
vacant rental
Yeah,
properties.
Right, but either one, we should be able to inspect at whenever we want, at the most once a year.
Right.
Okay.
Well, after we had our discussion
Yes.
last week, I did pull up the ordinance, I re-reviewed it.
Right.
There are a lot of gray areas in that ordinance that need to be tightened up, so I
And we
sent.
have a revision pending right now in that ordinance that I gave that Attorney Valdez is looking at. So
Right.
now would be the time to.
Right, and I also, could you resend, can you resend me the revisions that you sent to Attorney Valdez? Because I'm gonna share them with Superintendent Witt. I sent Superintendent Witt a note the other day, told him to add this to our list of discussion items, and we'll see, well, and this was a question that I have for the attorney. If you remember a couple months back, I wanted to revise
For the building code.
I wanted to revise the residential rental code with regards to inspections to require that either the property owner or management company be present. We didn't want, a tenant to be there, or worse, like a tenant's adult child over age 18. We wanted someone, a property owner representative, to be present. And at that time, the revisions that I was asking for, Attorney Valdez explained to the board that they could be deemed unconstitutional. And to that point, in last Thursday's Tribune, I think it was in the editorial section or close to the editorial section, there was a article in the last Thursday's Tribune exactly to that subject matter. The city of Chicago was trying to force an annual inspection, and then the city of Zion also tried to update and change their inspection requirements, and it went to federal court, and they were deemed to be unconstitutional. If a village feels that there is a safety issue in place, you can go to your local court and you can ask for a search warrant to go in and force a search, force an inspection. But other than that, we can't force an inspection. So, but that was for residential properties. That article pretty much talked about residential properties. I don't know if a vacant commercial property, either vacant or residential, commercial or residential. If they're vacant and they're vacant for a long time and the village feels that there could be some issues in the building because it's been vacant for so long and not maintained, can the village force an owner to allow us to go in and make an
Well,
inspection?
Yeah, there's gonna be 3 levels of our authority. The first one, and again, the case you're referencing is the case of Lozano Pierce versus the City of Zion, and it's exactly what we were trying to do. We were trying to get annual inspections of vacant properties, even when a landlord.
No, not vacant, it
Well,
was
I
occupied.
meant once they
Yeah.
become, when a lease expires, in between, and that's what the fight was about. Okay, your lease is up, now we want to come in and inspect. The federal court for the Northern District of Illinois ruled that those kinds of routine inspections are unconstitutional. Then you have, Don, I think what you're talking about, a wall that is openly and clearly falling down and poses an emergency situation. Every municipality, and even non-home rule, has the authority in a case in which there is imminent danger to the public welfare and safety to go in and not only enter the premises, but to secure the premises so that no one gets hurt. And then the third level is the more difficult one, in which you don't know. It looks bad, but we
Right.
don't know. It's not
Right.
imminent. Can't say it's imminent.
Right.
In those cases, you have to go to court and get an order.
So in the second one, how do you do that? So for a building department, now I know with security, when it comes to broken windows and criminal activity, there's different rules and regulations, but with the building department, in the scenario that Don's talking about, what is the physical description of how you actually, you said go in and inspect it? Like, you don't knock down the door, you don't, how do you make that happen if the owner says no?
You wouldn't be able to do it unless you had probable cause to believe that there is.
You saw the wall falling down.
Or you believe that, you have evidence that a judge could look at and say you have a rational reason for entering onto the premises against the property owner's will to inspect.
So we'd still have to go to court.
We'd have to go to court.
Oh, so
And
number two and
essentially, that's
number
what this
three.
decision said. I mean, all is not lost. This judge.
We have to go to court in all scenarios.
Yes, this judge essentially said, we're not saying that the municipality can't do it. They just have to go before a judge and provide evidence that there is a need for them to enter the premises.
But how do you prevent slumlords from
Yeah,
happening then? How do you, like, I'm gonna give you an example. I don't know the address of this home, but one of our code inspectors went and did a rental property inspection. She got to the back, and this was in the fall, she got to the back of the property after wading through, feet and feet and yards of overgrown debris, got to the back of the garage, and there was a ginormous hornet's nest that covered 90% of the window, of which she ran away from because she's deathly allergic to bees. So she never even went in the garage to look. But then she went in the house, and there were wires hanging down. The front of the furnace didn't have the proper furnace cover on it. There was all kinds of stuff in this house. It was horrendous. So she wrote up her list, sent it to the landlord, and of course the landlord wasn't there. The tenant was there. The landlord didn't want to go.
Someone was living there?
Somebody was living there. The landlord didn't want to go. Well, the tenant's there. That's good enough. Let the tenant be there. Fine. She wrote up her list. She sent it to the landlord. Now the landlord calls and wants to have a 3-hour chat and have an explanation as to line by line. Well, why is this and why did you write this? It's your house. Get off your butt. Drive to your rental property with the list and you go and look at it. We're not going to spend 3 more hours holding your hand telling you about all the violations in your rental property. So this is where, I'm a little, I can understand about not inhibiting people's rights. One of the cases cited in the article, a family has been renting this house for 20 years, and the city of Chicago was insisting they had to come in and inspect. Well, they've been tenants for 20 years. There have been never permits pulled to do any work there, and the tenants weren't complaining that anything was broken, so why are you forcing your way into our house? And so I can understand from that point of view. But when you have situations like the one I just discussed here in Midlothian, where you have dangling wires, things aren't installed properly, there's no cover on the furnace.
But in that scenario, the owner let the inspection happens. So
Right,
that's.
but what if we have,
exactly correct.
right,
That's
but what if
exactly
we have
correct.
situations like this where we have these issues inside and the owners still won't let us come in? I mean,
Then you have to have, that what you've said, and if we're able to lawfully acquire that information, that is grounds to go into court.
okay,
And the-
if a tenant calls us and complains that, hey, the landlord won't come and fix something that's broken, do we still have to go to court, or can the tenant let us in?
The tenant can let you in.
Tenant
Yeah.
can let us in,
And
okay.
to your point, trustee, in 85% of the cases,
Mm-hmm.
when a municipality is enforcing safety issues under the municipal code,
Mm-hmm.
it's either the tenant or the landlord that lets them in. The issue is usually not that a landlord won't let you in,
Mm-hmm.
or that a tenant won't let you in. It's usually a situation in which there's a tenant who is engaged in some sort of criminal act, or, in the alternative, is never gonna, they're gonna ignore you, and they're not gonna let you in. Those are the cases that created this, what I think to be questionable ruling, which is that we're just not gonna do it. We have a right to our house, and you can't come in. And the judge is essentially saying, that is your constitutional right. Municipality, if you have reason to believe that there's bees and wasps that are going off, that wires are hanging, bring it to me, and I will let you in. And that's how these cases are resolved. In almost 100% of the cases, if you have that threat to danger and safety, the municipality eventually gets in, and that's because they go before a judge. And that's all these cases say. You gotta go to a judge.
Did that answer your question, trustee Kelly?
It does, whether, in all cases, we have to go to court, and we don't want to get
No,
involved.
unless they.
Unless they let
Unless they let us in.
Yeah.
But
Right.
now,
But-
just to one point though,
Okay.
in our pro champs ordinance, it says that the owner, because the place is vacant, the owner is required to do an inspection once a month.
But I think they're referring to the owner physically inspecting the property,
Right.
not doing an inspection of health and safety hazards.
Right, but they have to come and inspect the property and make sure that there's no broken windows, that the, that the water
Vegetation
pipes,
and-
that the water pipes haven't burst and there's a
Yeah.
flood in the basement and, there's vegetation and blah, blah, blah.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the, that
Yeah,
was some of the
so they
things-
have to come and do an inspection but there's nothing in there that says they have to share the inspection. So some of that type of language needs to be tightened up.
Well, I don't think
They need to
that's
give us
the
a copy
intent.
of it.
I don't think that's the intent, that they're supposed to do a formal inspection. I think inspect means.
show up.
Show up, not have someone write something down, just show up.
Well, we can
and-
change the language that says you need to inspect it once a month and you
Well,
need to.
that is part of
Yeah.
the new recommendations that I had.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Different things of what they have to do.
Yeah, share that with me and I'll
I
share it
already
with,
did.
and I'll
So
review
when
it.
I think I sent it to you originally, but I
Okay.
just forwarded it to everybody again.
When we issue a business license, do we just automatically issue a business license?
No, there's
or-
a business license inspection. The building department goes out
Okay.
and inspects.
Before you get
Okay.
occupancy.
Yeah, they have
Okay.
to do an inspection before they give them a certificate of
Okay.
occupancy.
But in the meantime, I can think of a few buildings around town. The Honda building was another one that we had no idea what the condition of that building was.
Mhm.
And the owner was MIA, so.
Right.
You make a
Okay.
valid point, trustee. I mean, it's just,
But we
think
can't-
about it, if we could have got into the family video, we
But
could
there's
have
no one-
maybe prevented but again, I guess that's not our problem.
Right.
It's his problem, it's his damages and.
Right.
you know.
Well,
Oh, when it flooded a couple of years ago
Yeah.
when the pipes burst? Yeah.
And I guess in connection with that, like, we had talked about this briefly when the vacant property ordinance went into play, but one of the things that we have brought up recently, especially with economic development and with concerns about some of the commercial properties, is having a registration fee that's appropriate for the property. Like, obviously, we want people to market their property, whether it be a house or a commercial lot, but, right now, I don't believe there's, I believe the fee is consistent, where maybe we I mean, my opinion is we should be charging more if somebody lets a property sit vacant and does nothing to market it for 3 years. Like, that causes a blight on our community. Like, it should be increased, And we get it, people move out, people move in, stuff like that, but I don't wanna see a vacant house or a vacant, commercial building with no one marketing it and then letting the building become more dilapidated. It hurts all of us.
Yeah, and a sign in the front window is not marking. the
Yes,
property.
correct.
Right.
Correct. And I mean, I think we could identify that.
Can we do that? Can we just set our own fee and just say that's what it is, or does it have to have
Yeah,
other standard?
it's good. Well, the Pro Champs model ordinance has been challenged all across the country, and so far, it's prevailed. And that's because I think it relates primarily to commercial and residential properties that have requirements for registration.
Right.
Inspections are a different issue. Those are searches. Registration, the municipalities just had approved that abandoned properties usually end up with bad things happening in a municipality. Municipalities were able to prevail across the country with that argument. So I think what it comes down to is that there's got to be a distinction between a house which is being maintained and those which bring rise to probable cause for a municipality to exercise its home rule authorities. And that's usually that's our sweet zone, where public interest, safety compels courts to allow us to do that. But to be quite frankly, we may be coming up next month in Markham with another challenge to the Pro Champs ordinance by a resident. And, we'll obviously argue it, but
So, you know my feelings on it. I mean, I think I've been pretty vocal on it. We have to do what we can do, whatever that is, to make sure we don't have things happening like have happened when vacant properties aren't maintained. Like, whatever and I don't know what all of the regulations are, and, the Pro Champs was the one that we looked at first, but we have to be able to protect the community.
absolutely.
And by leaving properties vacant with an owner who is not maintaining them, and by not maintaining, I mean not cutting the grass, letting, people break windows or get into the home and, try to take up residency. Those are all things that cause bad things to happen in our community that we can't continue. We have to do something to give the police department and our building department more teeth.
I think if we read the Pro Champ ordinance again, and maybe a little bit tweaking of it, that's the best we can do. There are a lot of provisions under the Pro Champ ordinances that we really don't enforce. We're just taking the registration, but there are provisions in the Pro Champ ordinance
I've read it a number of times. Yeah.
To be honest, we don't follow the letter of the Pro Champ ordinance, making the owners do all of these things, and sometimes
Well,
that's
it's
because
very
it's a
vague,
bank.
it's vague and ambiguous when it comes to it, if you read it, which is why some of our suggestions were, make it a little bit more like what
Put
you're,
some teeth
who
in
you
it. Yeah, we can
report
do that.
to,
We can
and
do
what
that.
happens if you don't, and, if a property is not secured and somebody's allowed to loiter, we don't wanna hurt the good business owners or the good rental companies that are keeping up on their property. It's never those properties. It's the ones that have been pretty much foreclosed and vacant for months and months, and no one comes and checks on them. And it says it shall, like Kathy said, one of the provisions is there shall be an inspection. The way I read it and the way she reads it are very different. I read it like the owner has to inspect the property and make sure it's okay. Well, how do you enforce that? He says, yes, I am.
Yes, I was there.
Okay, now we're.
We want a written report from you saying you were there and this is what you found, or this is what you didn't find.
Yeah, I think that can be done. I think that can be done.
So can you review that again?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
get-
I think just so you know, the first time around, and again, it may possibly be the same homeowner who was victorious the first time around before the Pro Champs ordinance. He challenged our enforcement of the existing ordinance for abandoned properties. And
Somebody currently is doing that?
Well, it was repealed and replaced by this
Very
one.
likely, yes. That person who prevailed the first time, we called him into court, before the Pro Champ ordinance, was now cited again under the Pro Champs ordinance for doing the same thing.
Right.
They may challenge it again. So, and that's fine, we'll defend it. The issue comes down to is when an owner has a property and it's vacant, and for whatever reason, someone gets adverse possession rights
Correct.
in it.
Correct.
Or at least
Yeah, bad
plausible.
things happen.
That is an issue that's gone around all across the country. There's a couple of cities that have tried to do something about it. And I said, I found one, Philadelphia. Philadelphia has an anti-squatter. I looked it up, and it really was not much more than what we have right now in terms of in the Pro Champs ordinance. It really wasn't much more, except saying that, the kinds of things that you're talking about to do, because bottom line is that we can't have the police department going in to say that someone is broken into that house and doesn't have a right to be there when
We
they
ha-
now have possession of it.
I respect the fact that that's your legal opinion. I respectfully disagree with the theory and the principle behind that. Because in my world, when you break into somebody's house and you don't have authority, you get arrested for burglary or home invasion or trespassing.
Correct, but it's not
So,
my legal
I
opinion.
get it. I get
It's
it. We just have
across
to
the
agree to
country,
disagree on
every
it.
legislature,
I
and
get it.
especially in Illinois, which has an adverse possession statute which protects someone who is accused of breaking into a house, and then they say,
It's-
I have adverse
I-
possession rights.
In my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, in my opinion, that is not what the intention of the law was.
I agree with you.
But for some reason, nobody can seem to figure out how to change those laws. So what we need to do, because, I mean, we have to worry about Midlothian, is we have to make the laws we have as enforceable as possible, to make it as difficult as possible to allow bad things to happen.
And I absolutely agree with that. The limitation of that, though, is that we can't have DC Tavermina be asked to do something that I or no one else can do, which is to be a judge on the property as to whether this
No one's
guy,
asking that.
if this guy is broken in or whether he's a tenant. And then going back to the landlord and saying, and having
You're
that,
gonna make
having
me
that
keep going,
judicial
aren't you?
process right
He's
there.
gonna
in
make me
front-
keep
All right.
going. I get
Was
it.
this
If I called you and said someone was breaking into my house and the police showed up, they would be
That's not
allowed
the
to go
cases,
in.
that's not the cases we have.
If the owner says that, someone's in my house that doesn't belong there, I understand the differences, one is vacant, one's not.
But in this
I get
terrible
it.
case that we had in the village, the person was in already. They were in already, and
And that's the whole point of changing the ordinance, is to try to stop that.
Was your question answered, trustee?
Yes, we went through other things, but I think they're all necessary. Okay, and they will be discussed in the future, I'm sure.
we'll get something good going.
Okay.
We'll get something.
Well, so should we campaign to change the law more, or it seems to me that we should work with our legislators and maybe SSMMA and IML to say, hey, look, this is happening all across Illinois, and
Which
All
thing are we
across the
talking
country.
about?
squatter.
Oh, I've sent
Adverse.
emails, I've talked to
Yeah.
Brad Palmer, I mean, IML, I mean, I've talked to everybody. And everybody kind of has the same opinion that it needs, you know, that they agree that that's probably not the intention, but that's where we're at right now until an overhaul of the whole, I mean, I get where some of, you know, the law originates, and, you know, it's, in my opinion, originates from landlord-tenant disputes. I didn't pay you, now I'm kicking you out.
Right.
I totally get that. We're not talking about those scenarios.
I'd love to see just an anti-squatting Illinois statute. It doesn't have to override adverse possession. Just something that defines what you're talking about, trustee.
Breaking
Breaking and entering
illegally.
and claiming the place to be yours. That's
Yes.
squatting. That's against the law in Illinois.
Squatters
Then we can
claim
send
they
them in.
have a lease. Well, show us your lease.
I love that they create these names that make it sound, that's not so bad, adverse possession.
Yeah.
No, you broke in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I would be in favor, though, of, if that's the case, if our attorney would write a anti-squatter law, we would have something to show somebody and say, you should change it to this, because everybody's going, apparently, well, I don't know what to do. Well, okay, we'll lead the way. Here's what we should be doing.
I would love that. Could you work on that?
Until it
sir?
happens to a Hyatt property, it's not gonna happen, let's be real.
Pardon me?
I said, until it happens to a Hyatt property, it's not gonna happen, let's be honest.
Easy.
Fine, okay.
True.
But I would think we need something really to wave under their nose and talk to our people who could be lobbyists for municipalities and go, here, what do you think? Does this meet your needs? And-
I came to that conclusion too.
Right.
That what there needs to be is a specific statute to prohibit squatting. And
Okay.
squatting, everything about the definition of squatting would be where the problem is. Breaking and stealing and committing fraud
Right.
against the homeowner.
Right, so what do you think? I think we should do it.
First-
That's where
I-
we should start, because we're talking nebulous stuff. What do you mean by this? here's what we think, what do you think? And maybe get some support.
I'd like to
go.
start with a letter to all of our state representatives, just bringing up the problem, because that's what when I emailed Brad from IML,
Yeah.
I mean, he said, in order for them to support something, that it would need to be a state legislator that starts the ball rolling.
Right.
So maybe we could even, before we start writing laws, maybe we could just draft a letter
Campaign.
from the board as a whole to our state elected officials saying, this is a big concern of ours, how do you feel about it?
Good. It's a good place to start.
So who wants to draft the letter?
Well, I think Attorney Valadez had offered to do that already.
I'm just clarifying.
Okay. All right, good. My other item is that the South Suburban Land Bank and Development Authority has had an interim director for the last couple years. It was basically the personnel supplied by Southland Development Authority. They have recommended the appointment of a permanent executive director who has extensive experience in Ohio and Indiana with land banks and all over the country. So I think it's a good appointment. His name is Joseph Van Dyke. The board, the land bank board has to vote to approve him, I believe, which hasn't happened yet, but I think it's exactly the type of person they need, because I think we need his expertise and his experience with land banks, what can be done, what the future of land banks can be. So I'm very happy about that. Southland Development Authority has put a lot of time and effort into it, but they're not land bank people. So I'm optimistic that once he's appointed, which would, I believe would be in March, I believe, that he can get us a more positive direction for the land bank. And that's all I have to say.
Have you been in touch with the current temporary director to
Yes.
ask them if they've hired a broker to market this Honda building yet?
They're not up, it's not up on the website.
Well, can you call them and ask them what the heck they're doing with it? Because they've had the deed since August.
Right? But Jeff-
Have they even sent anybody over there to inspect
Yeah, they
it?
need somebody to inspect it.
I know, but can
And
you
put a-
ask
put-
them to do
Put a
something?
window in where the board is.
Yeah, there's two boards, there's two
Oh, two
windows
of them
that
in there,
need to
yeah.
be fixed.
Okay. But I don't know, Jeff is sort of, interim director is sort of like on the, I'm leaving.
I don't,
mode.
you know what, that is a nonsense excuse to me, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to you, Don, but this guy has been the interim director. I do believe that we had two people from the Southland Development Authority stand right there
Yep.
and talk to us about wonderful glowing things and how they're gonna do all this fancy stuff, and they haven't done squat. So I'm
They really not.
extremely
They really don't know-
irritated.
they really don't know
I'm
where they're
irritated
going.
with the Southland Development Authority and with the Land Bank, because as far as I'm concerned, they're not doing what they're paid to do. So,
Anything else tonight?
That is all.
Trustee Crowley?
Thank you, sir, just a couple.
wound up.
I know, like, my face is red, I can feel it.
Both of you.
Well, start talking about squatters.
yeah.
I just have a couple things tonight. First, I wanted to kind of go over a few things Trustee Johnson mentioned about the Finance Committee. Trustee Killelly and I talked about a few things that we brought up yesterday that we just wanted the board to be aware of, and that is, a few weeks ago, the board did give us authority to move forward with the engagement letter for a one-year period with Lauterbach and Amen. We did receive that engagement letter. There was a slight increase in their charges for,
1,100,
yeah, it was $1,100 for the year, which I think is about 4%, 3%.
3%.
3%. So we are hoping that with a lot of our journaling that we've had done in advance, that will affect the overall price and will actually wind us saving us money. So Finance Director Redmond is going to go ahead and sign that agreement and make sure that we get started on the fiscal year as soon as possible. In connection with that, Finance Director Redmond also sent the mayor, Trustee Killelly, and myself an email about the RFP that the village will be doing for new auditing service. It's the belief of the Finance Committee that we need to have additional finance policies, and one of the policy is to, every 3 or 4 years, we haven't decided yet, to make sure that we go out for an RFP to make sure we're being, we're competitive in what we're doing for our auditing services. The question I had for you, Attorney Valadez, and not to start another discussion, is do we, I know she sent it to you for review, legal review, do we need the RFP to be passed by the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll make sure, one of us will make sure it gets on, once you approve it for legal sufficiency, we'll make sure it gets on the agenda for approval.
I already had an interaction with the finance director, and she has sent it to me, and it's ready to go.
Okay, perfect. If you could just copy all this, and one of us will get it on the agenda for approval if no one has any problems with it.
Okay.
Okay. We also discussed the grant policy. Another finance policy that we're moving forward with is a grant policy on how the village will maintain those records and how they'll be visible, and what processes we have to take when departments are applying for grants. It is on board docs it was on our finance committee agenda, so everybody has a copy of it, if everyone could take a look at it. If no one has any problems with it, we'll be asking for that to be on the consent agenda for next week, okay? Maria, if you could throw that on the consent agenda. Safety and risk management meeting, the village, I can't remember if I talked about this already, but I believe in 2 weeks we're going back to having our safety and risk management meeting. Department heads, the mayor, will be meeting to go over safety and risk management within the village. This is a recommendation by our insurance carrier so that we can limit our liabilities and keep our policies in line and not continue to go up at large rates. So, and then the last thing that I wanted to touch on the Finance Committee was the fiscal year 2024 budget will be sent out to the department heads in the next few weeks, and we'll be having those discussions here and with departments. So if anybody has anything they need to talk about, they can just send a quick email.
Director Redmond feels confident that she'll have it ready for approval by the end of this
Well,
fiscal year.
that's been a little bit of a chuckle from all of us, but she has impressed me so far, so I'm confident that she will do what she says, as long as the board cooperates. But I didn't say that. IT, just a couple updates on IT. Thank you to Trustee Burbat. He's been working with Proven on getting our switches upgraded. The board approved that expenditure. I think it was like $1,800 or $1,900 a few weeks ago. We have signed the quote, and we will be moving forward with that. And I think it's going to be a big help with a lot of the problems that we have with wiring and our internet and being able to maintain and monitor it. So thank you, Trustee. I don't think I could have done it without you, so you were definitely huge in that. And then Trustee Burbat and I will be meeting with Proven in the next few weeks to go over our annual review. We'll be walking the village and coming up with recommendations for the next fiscal year for our IT and our IT needs. That is all I have this evening, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Excellent work. Attorney Valdez?
I would just ask that the ComEd settlement agreement be placed on the agenda for approval for next month, and we can discuss that in the closed session today, the details of that settlement agreement. Excuse me, next week. Did I say next month? I meant next week. And also, it's hard to believe, but I'm telling you again that the federal magistrate continued the Aunt Martha's decision for the 4th time. And so probably I think it's next week, I'll be coming to you with whatever that decision is, although keep in mind that I've told you that 3 times before.
Do you think it's because the judge is reviewing every line item on every one of their bills to ensure that it's valid, or he just doesn't want to read it at all?
I cannot predict anymore. The best answer I could give is that he probably knows that this is going to be a highly contentious issue, and that he wants to make sure that he gets it right. Which I think bodes well for us, because there were mistakes made in their billing. So, and that's all I have, except for closed session.
Do we need the comment, to talk about comment in closed session?
The settlement agreement, yes, the terms.
Okay.
That's it?
That's all.
Okay. Just one thing under my business I wanted to share with everyone. Regarding something I've been working on for a few months. I shared it with you via email. Received the letter from CMAP. This, I guess it was Monday or Tuesday. Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. Dear President LaRue, thank you for your recent application. Sorry, my glasses aren't strong enough. Recent application for the call for projects on behalf of the Village of Midlothian. I am pleased to inform you that your application was successful, and CMAC would like to partner with Midlothian to participate in the grant writing program. So, very happy about that. This grant will assist the village in going back to what you were talking about with the grants and long-term management of grants. It's going to assist us not only with that, but securing additional resources and opportunities for future grants, as well as establish a consensus from the board and stakeholders on a priority transportation projects, identify next steps for implementation, and receive resources to seek out and manage grant funding. So, very excited about that.
Mayor, is this for all grants, or is this just for transportation grants?
CMAP only deals with transportation projects, so.
So we still are looking to move forward with a grant writer?
Correct. This is not a grant writer. This is going to help us get and manage grants. I already talked to him about the grant writer that we're thinking about bringing on board. They'll work together to help us.
And the grant writer that we've discussed before, they're eager to get on board. We've just had a little bit of difficulty with the holidays and vacation schedules, getting them to be able to come out on a Wednesday evening to discuss it. So I'm going to try and work on that for the next couple weeks to see if any of those dates will work. So, but I think that, one of the department heads already asked me that if we had already approved it, because they had some grants that they were looking at in the future of writing and they needed some assistance. So I do think it's definitely something we should do, as long as it won't interfere with what we're doing with CMAP.
Correct. Thank you. That's all I have. Clerk Moskal.
I have nothing tonight, sir.
Thank you, sir. Then at this time, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or representatives. Was that all? There was 3 things I thought you wanted me to.
Yeah. And litigation, yes.
And also to discuss litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed or is pending before court.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are in closed session. There is no further action following closed session.
Yeah.